It's really a thriving community.
How about the Valley?
Guadalupe.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love driving down, from Tecate to Ensenada. That entire corridor there is pretty special. It's amazing. So just the changes there, and just in the last few years, has been quite amazing with the wineries and just the amount of people now that are going back down.
So are you? I mean, this is maybe wishful thinking, but having a business and a reason to be in Tecate on at least a weekly basis. Is that giving you excuses and reasons to scoot another 20, 30 minutes down the road and get into the Valley for a lunch or a quick glass of wine in the evening?
Yeah, every now and then we get down there when that new museum.
Probably not like you should, though, huh?
Not like I should. That's for sure.
Close, yeah.
That's for sure. But there's some museums. There's the new museum there, the winery museum, that we've had an opportunity. We took some of the managers down and had some lunch and walked through, and it's amazing that even the people that live there in Tecate, they don't get to go experience that, because you kind of get set in your own little world.
Yeah.
But bringing those some of the friends and employees down just for them to see it was really neat, because they all have family members in the Valley that they don't see too often, and a lot of them didn't even know that was there. So it's mainly for the tourists, but it's really interesting to see locals enjoying that as well.
So here's an off the wall question for you. How many quinceañeras have you been to?
I've been to not too many. I mean, I get invited to them all the time. Probably 3.
Okay,
but they are definitely big parties down there when that happens, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And then how about your posada?
Oh man,
or is that a sore subject?
Oh no, not really a sore subject, but it's yeah.
I think the thing we can say is that Mexicans know how to party. How's that?
Yeah, no, they definitely do.
They set aside the daughter's 15-year-old birthday is one. That's the quinceañera. The posada is another one. What else am I missing? I know there's a few. I mean, obviously the Mexican Independence Day, September 16th or 15th is. I think they celebrate on the 15th, but 16th is the actual day. Is that right?
Yep, I think so. That's the big one. I mean, the Mexican Independence Day, especially in Tecate. I mean, you've got guys on horseback. They do some recreations down there that are pretty cool.
Yeah,
that I've got to see. That's been good. But there's a lot there. Let me tell you, there's a lot of holidays in Mexico. We think that there's a lot of holidays in the U.S. There's a lot of holidays in Mexico for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So from the standpoint of if I wanted to start, if I was in business in the United States and had reasons to believe that it would make sense to move some component of my operation into Baja or Tecate for that matter, is there an organization either side of the border that assists with that? Are there companies? Are there government organizations? I feel like I remember dealing with a company called Procopio back in the 2000s. They were more of an international tax firm, but I think they also had some other components that assisted foreign-owned businesses in Mexico. Are they around? Have you ever dealt with them? Or are there other companies that you would recommend somebody that wants to expand into Mexico? Give me some pointers there, or give our listeners some pointers there.
There's a couple different there's a number of different organizations on the Maquiladora side. So you would probably just go to Google and you can, or if you knew someone, down in that area, a lot of the attorneys that you would work with in business, if you wanted to start it, would be able to point you in the right direction. But there's a number of organizations that you can get involved in. I would recommend, doing your homework, because it's not, Mexico isn't the end all be all. A lot of people have the misnomer that labor is cheap, and that's why people move to Mexico. And that's, I think that would be false. It's not just for that. But any of those associations would be good to talk to. There's actually probably 3 times a year as well between Tecate and Tijuana. Those associations will have trade shows, so you can go down to these trade shows, and it will talk about the different industries and moving into Mexico, and you'd be able to meet the people that some of the notaries that are there, and a lot of the other companies that can help companies move into Mexico, because typically it will be divisions of large corporations that would want to move there for a particular reason. But this, they can help small companies do it as well.
Sure. When from the standpoint of your business, you'd mentioned the finish process. When you say finish, I'm assuming you mean paint and or sandblasting and that component of it, or is there other elements to it?
Yeah, that's typically we sandblast. So some of the items we would dip. We can dip in coatings, but a lot of it is liquid paint.
Okay.
But some of the, in California now, a lot of it's going to water based. They don't let you spray any of the epoxies, or it's much harder to. You can get different permits to do so, but it has to be, they just made it very, very difficult to do, and it cost prohibitive. And I don't know that it's really an environmental thing, because they still require you. We still have the large Garmat spray booths down in Tecate. It's the same. All of the equipment that we've brought down and has been the same equipment that's used in California, and it's on that standpoint, it's more of a political thing. But we're able to take certain materials from Canada, so we import some of our paint from Canada. It's epoxy, and we're able to spray it down in Tecate and then ship the finished product into the U.S. And it allows us to have a much higher quality on the finish of the industrial product than we could if we were manufacturing in California. So
does all of the finished product go back into the United States, or do you ship worldwide out of Tecate?
We do ship worldwide out of Tecate, but it does go back into the U.S. So even if we would ship overseas to, say, Dubai, we do some work with the airlines that are over there, it would still come back into San Diego, and then it would ship from San Diego out.
Okay, so everything gets shipped out of the United States.
Correct. So everything that crosses back into Mexico has to get shipped back into the U.S., or at least virtually imported back in and then out to wherever it's going.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Well, from the standpoint of acceptance, and this, I've been through this, so I'm asking this question, curious about your experience and wondering, how similar our situations were. A couple things on this topic. When I moved to Southern Baja and started the company that I ran down there, I was probably over or subconscious of being a foreigner. I used to tell people all the time, it was one of the healthiest things that a white American male could do would be to go live somewhere where they're a minority. So I did that. I was a minority. And I was sensitive from the very beginning of how I was perceived, and probably oversensitive. But how's that process been for you? I struggled with being the gringo that was, the big guy in charge, and it didn't sit well with me. And it took a long time to adjust and ultimately start making better business decisions. And a lot of that was the result of me getting some good Mexican employees / advisors around me. Has it been a struggle? Like, what are some of the pain points for you? We can beat around the bush, or we can act like there's not differences, but there are, and we know it. What were some of the struggles?
Well, I was fortunate because I've had strong management from the beginning. So I think you have to respect. It's more of a mindset, right? Just because you're a U.S. gringo doing business down in Mexico, and you may be the boss, it's more of a respect thing. What I've found is, especially with the vendors and even the workers and anyone that's there, even if it's the guy that's, because it's still full service gas when I pull in and get diesel in the truck. It's just a level of respect that you would give to the people. It goes a long way, and that's probably the icebreaker when you're really nice to them and you show them a level of respect. I think it goes a long way really, really quick versus being the guy that's in charge. I don't think I've ever had that mindset. but it also helps when you've got good people around you, especially when you're doing business or you're going into a new vendor or you're trying to gain a new service, somebody that you need help with. I think it's that level of respect and not being, pompous.
And I think that it's so funny how stereotypes arise, and at some point, there's truth to the reasons behind stereotypes. And where I'm going with this is that I think in United States capitalism, or in the business world in the United States, usually money talks.
Yep.
You can go into a place and say, well, you don't want to lose my business, do you? And typically, in the United States, we don't want to lose business, so the customer's always right. That type of mentality. And I think that money, at least in my experience, money wasn't the most important thing in doing business in Mexico. Pride and respect meant a lot more. So if losing an opportunity to make money meant that they could save face or not be disrespected, they would choose the latter over the money. Would you agree with me there?
Yeah, I would definitely.
You can't dangle the dollar carrot in front of people and get them to do what you want them to do, which I don't agree with anyways. But that's a big difference I felt between Mexico and the United States.
Yeah, and it is a big difference. It's more, that respect part. People would do things and go out of their way to help us out. Mainly because it was a mutual respect that they had. It rarely is about the money. I mean, obviously they like to get paid and they like that security. But to be able to threaten that to get an end result isn't something that is readily accepted down there, because a lot of the service people will walk from that because that's not what they're about.
Right.
Yep.
Well, and on the same note there, man, the caliber of or the devotion to work is high, and I think that there's maybe a misnomer there sometimes. I've never had harder working employees than when I was running businesses in Mexico. Harder and diligent and striving for the better of the entire organization, the teamwork and cohesiveness. I have not been involved in organizations in the United States that had the same level of those characteristics, at least in the business that I ran in Mexico.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with you there as well. It's just the culture is very different. So the Mexican people are very happy to have a job. The entitlement sometimes that you find in the U.S. is really not there in Mexico. A lot of the majority of the people that we have in the factory, I would say that over half of them have been with us for over 10 years. So it's they're very proud of what they do.
Yeah, right.
For sure. And if you have the processes in place, you're not going to find a harder. We're not going to find a harder group of people, wanting to come to work and making work a fun place.
Sure.
It's pretty cool.
So shift gears here a little bit. You've been recently, I've been with you on one, and I know you've made a few others. You've been exploring the peninsula via the dirt roads. I know you were in Chavato here a couple weeks or a month ago or so, and then down on the tip.
Yep.
And I think you're several years into this process of exploring the backcountry. Share some of the favorite spots. I got mine. Where have you been, and what do you like?
Well, this is let's see. It was really cool to be able to, we took some of the guys from the shop and were able to, drive down to Cabo. We took a couple rigs down in the UTVs, and we were able to, hit some of the spots that we've always wanted to go down that we might not necessarily have had time. So they drove the trucks, and we were able to, hop in the Can-Ams and jam down to Chavato and all around the Mulahay area. Haven't had a chance to get on the Pacific side yet. That's going to be the next trip, but where we've been on that Gulf side, there is I love Mulegé. Mulegé is probably one of my favorite spots.
Have you been out to see the cave paintings that are out in the mountains there east